I'm going to share with you my most expensive mistake I've ever made in real estate. One flip, $100,000 gone. Poof. But stick with me, and I'm going to show you exactly how to avoid a mistake like this. Okay, so like I said, this was the worst flip experience I've ever had. Up to this point, I had never lost money on a flip. I had never lost money in real estate at all, for that matter. But in this case, I lost a ton of money. It was all in one, and I made 4 crucial mistakes that I'm going to go through with you here to kind of help you avoid this and help you sidestep this kind of a mistake, because it was totally avoidable, to be honest with you. And looking back, I can't believe I made these mistakes, but it can happen. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I did wrong, why I did it, and like I said, hopefully you can avoid making these mistakes as well. Number 1, I gave the responsibility of running this flip and overseeing it to somebody who worked for me, somebody in my company who had never done a flip before. Now, for me, it seemed like this was all common sense. Everything about a flip seems like common sense to me, but at this point, I had been flipping houses and had rentals and been in this world for over a decade. And when I gave this responsibility over to this employee of mine, I just figured it's all common sense. He'll know exactly what to do, and maybe I can give him a few pointers, and if he has questions, he can come and ask, and it's not that big of a deal. He can just get it done and move on. I had other things going on in the company, and so I gave it to him, and he went after it, and we gave him the authority to pay contractors and all that. So we just let him go, and like I said, it seemed like there was nothing that could really go wrong. It's very straightforward, like just do these things, boom, 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 pay the contractors, and you'll be done. But number 1, trusting it to somebody with no flipping experience, no background in real estate really at all, what he did for me was the furthest thing from flipping houses. So giving him that responsibility and expecting it to get done right and get done well was my first mistake. I mean, it was just absolutely, looking back, it's ludicrous. I know now how silly that was, but I was sort of in my own little, zone of doing what I was doing for the company and trying to grow and hire and scale and, bring on team members and things like that and run the company. I just figured this little side project, would be very easy for somebody, and it wasn't, because he didn't have the experience, like I said. So number 1, don't assume that your experience and what's common sense to you is common sense to everybody, because it's not. What seemed very easy to me was overwhelming. And this person who I entrusted it to, that I gave him the responsibility, he hadn't been in the company very long. And so to him, it's like, well, I don't want to say I can't do this. I don't want to say that it's overwhelming. I'm just going to go and get it done and prove myself. And, as it turns out, he didn't ask a lot of questions. He just wanted to kind of figure it out himself. And we gave him, checkbook access, so to speak. He could pay contractors and do what he had to do. I didn't want to slow him down, so I just sort of gave him access to everything and said, go for it. But number 1, your experience, what's common sense to you, is not always common sense to the people that work for you. They don't have the same experience as you have. So, you have to make sure that whoever's doing a flip in your company, or you for that matter, if you don't have experience, you should get help, but not just giving it to an inexperienced person. That was number 1. Okay, number 2, we paid contractors up front. And when I say we, I don't like telling the story, because it really sounds like I'm just saying, oh, it wasn't me, it was somebody else. And it was, but the reality is it is you. When it's your company and you give someone responsibilities that's beyond what they are able to do or beyond the experience that they have, it kind of is on you, all right? So from now on in this video, I'm just going to say me, even though it was somebody that I gave the responsibility to. It's my company, and so it's me. I paid contractors up front for work that wasn't done. I gave contractors too big of a down payment, and I gave them payments for things they were going to do, not for things they had done. And there's a huge difference there. And so if you don't know the difference is really when a contractor says, okay, I'm going to order the flooring and install it this week, or I'm going to go pick up the flooring, pay for it, and install it this week. And he says, I want to get paid for the flooring and to get paid for laying it. And you go, okay, well, that sounds reasonable. I will pay you. Well, the problem is if they haven't picked up the flooring yet and they haven't laid any flooring yet, there's been no expense on their end. And when you're dealing with contractors, what I've learned, not just through this experience, but over the last 18 or 20 years that I've been in real estate, is if a contractor needs everything paid up front before they do everything or anything, for example, they don't have the money to buy flooring, and so they need you to give them the money for the flooring, and then they don't have money to pay their people, so you have to pay them so they can pay their people and do this all up front. That's kind of a red flag for a contractor. You really should be working with contractors that can do some work and get paid after it's done. And in fact, I really think all contractors should get paid after work is done. If you don't, what can happen is they can take your money and run. Now, that's exactly what happened here. Contractors got paid in the beginning, at the beginning of the job before they did anything, huge chunk of the renovation funds, they got paid up front. And then they kept asking for money along the way for work that wasn't being verified to be done. What happens when you do that is contractors sometimes will bail. They'll ghost you. They'll take as much money from you as they can get up front, and they'll start collecting money as fast as they can. And the minute you start pushing back or like, hey, I want to see this work, they never show up again and they're gone. And that's what happened. So some of the 100,000, about a quarter of it, maybe a little more, a third of it maybe, was lost in just giving contractors upfront money and paying for materials and labor upfront that hadn't been done and then never got done. And so that was one way that the $100,000 was lost. That was a part of it, is paying them upfront and not verifying work and not waiting until work is done before you pay them. So that was mistake number 2, paying contractors too much down and too much in advance of the work and the material being ordered. Okay, mistake number 3. The third thing I did wrong was I tried to do quick fixes to this house and put it on the market before it was fully renovated. So the house needed a full renovation. It had a swimming pool that had green water in it. It just, the swimming pool was a mess. There was a lot of things that needed to get done in the house. But what I tried to do was, put lipstick on a pig. I tried to do a couple of quick things, throw it up on the market and make a quick buck and move on. As it turns out, that wasn't enough because people would come in and say, oh, the paint looks nice. You painted the walls. The flooring's awful. The pool is green. The cabinets in the kitchen are old and dated. And so nobody was making offers, and certainly not making offers for the amount of money that I needed to sell it for to make a profit on this. And so I would take it off the market and I would do the floors and I put it back on the market and they go, oh, the floors look great. The paint looks good. The pool's green, the cabinets are old, the bathroom is dated, there would just be, the furnace is on its last leg, and so people weren't making offers, and so I kept just doing one thing, putting it back on the market, one thing. Now, what happens when you do that is not only are you not getting offers, which is bad, but you're also holding the property for a really long time because it takes time to get contractors out, do a couple things, put it back on the market, wait to see if the market is going to, produce the results that you want. And so there's like a month to 3 months in between this on and off. Next thing you know, 6, 8, 9 months go by, you haven't sold the house. And what kills you in that scenario is the holding cost. I was paying a lot of money for the money that I was using to buy and renovate this house. I was using what's called a hard money lender. And I think at the time, if I remember right, I was paying 15% on the money. And so 15% on this money plus the taxes that we're paying on this thing, plus the heating and the cooling and all the stuff that goes along with owning a house and holding it for a long time was starting to add up. And that's more of that 100,000 was in paying for this money that we had that was really, really expensive, and all the holding costs associated with it, insurance and taxes and all this utilities, all that, right? So that was another chunk of it. And so number 3 lesson, like I said, was not doing little fixes and trying to cheap your way out of the job and get it up and get it sold. But actually, I should have just done the whole renovation. From day one, I should have just renovated it and put it on the market. It would have sold faster. We would have held it for a lot less time. And I'm in Michigan. And so the other mistake was, and this is a bonus mistake, it's not really one of the four, but like 3A is that in Michigan, the best time to sell is in the spring and summer. Well, we took this project on in the spring. And so had we renovated it, top to bottom right away, and then tried to sell it, we would have been selling in the late spring, early summer, would have been ideal. But because we did this like piece at a time, on and off the market, trying to sell it when it's not really renovated, we didn't end up getting this thing sold until the winter time. And so when you do that, you tend to sell for a lot less. And so mistake number 3, like I said, was trying to piecemeal the work and not just get it done all at one time so that it would be the best presentation it could be. Number 4 really was something that happened in the beginning. I was originally going to wholesale this house, which means I got it under contract from a homeowner, from a seller, and I was going to take that contract and sell it to a house flipper who was going to be the one who flipped it. That's why my company wasn't really ready to flip this house. We weren't prepared for it because that was never the intention. We were just going to sell that contract to a house flipper, make a little money in between. That house flipper was going to go off and do the job. Well, the day before closing, the buyer who was going to be buying this contract from us backed out last minute. He said there was financing issues. I don't know what really happened, but he backed out. And instead of me looking at this and saying, my company is not really set up to flip this property, I don't have anybody who can run the flip. And hey, maybe this buyer backed out for other reasons. Like maybe there's something maybe I should look a little closer at this house as a flip. I wasn't looking at it as a flip. Maybe I should look a little closer at it. I may have had a different conclusion to what needed to be done. But again, I had never lost money in real estate. I had never lost money on a flip. And with a little bit too much ego and too much pride, I said, I'm not going to let this deal fall through. I'll buy it. I'll go raise money. I'll buy this thing. Our company will flip it. We'll make money and move on. And I did it all in 24 hours, meaning I raised the money, I closed down the deal, and started renovations basically in 24 hours. And I didn't take a lot of time to analyze the situation. I didn't really look at it as, is this the best thing for my company? But when this buyer backed out, I just thought, I'm not going to let this thing fall apart. I'm not going to let any money kind of slip through the cracks. We're going to take it on and do something that my company wasn't really built to do at the time. And so the 4th mistake was when the buyer backed out, not looking at this thing in a new lens, with a new objective and deciding whether or not it was a really, really good idea. And so just beware when things start falling apart. Don't always think that you have to keep everything held together because you're Superman or you're Wonder Woman or whatever, however you see yourself as a superhero. You're not necessarily having to be that person just because something was going to fall apart. Sometimes when things go a certain way, it's for a good reason, or it's not really meant for you to fix it all the time. And letting this deal just go away wasn't going to hurt my company, but keeping the deal means ultimately we lost $100,000. Now, I will say at the end of all of this, I lost, and by the way, some of that $100,000 was losing money that I borrowed. I didn't sell it for enough to pay back the lenders with the profits, but I did pay back the lenders from money that I just had in the company, my company's money. And so at the end of this, it was a complete disaster for everyone involved except my lender. The lender got paid. And that's how it goes a lot of times in real estate. When something goes a little sideways, when things don't go as planned and investors don't make money, or even sometimes lose money, they still make their lenders whole because lenders are the lifeblood of a house flipper's business. Without lenders, there is no flipping. Certainly in a house flipping business that's scaled up, right? Where maybe they're doing more than 5 flips a month. And some people I know are doing more than 10 a month, right? They're never going to let their lender lose money because they know that those lenders are critical to funding their deals, and funding their deals is how they pay their mortgage and how they put food on the table and how they build a legacy for their family. And so at the end of this, I lost $100,000, but my lender lost 0. He got all of his money back, because I would never let a lender lose even if I lose. They're not going to lose. And like I said, that's just the way it goes in real estate a lot. So just remember that. Lenders, where they sit in that capital stack, it's not that there's no risk. I know there is risk. I know there are investors who don't pay their lenders. I get that. But 9 times out of 10, that's not the case, or 99 times out of 100, that's not the case. Investors do everything, including go into debt themselves to pay lenders back. And so, you go from an investor who's got high risk, high reward. The lender has kind of low risk, medium reward. And then, people who never even get into real estate or never even try to flip a house, which is also a mistake, I think. They have no risk, but they have no reward. So lenders tend to make out 9 times out of 10 for sure, but just be aware that me losing $100,000 should be a cautionary tale. You don't have to lose $100,000. Just don't make these 4 mistakes that I made. Okay, I'll see you in the next video.